video, we're going to learn how to track external trainings using Relias. So this would be something like CPR first aid, where you're not actually completing the training in Relias. You're going to a class or getting it from some other source, but we still want to use Relias to track all of the trainings. So the first thing we're going to do is log into Relias, and you'll see I'm already logged in here and I'm on my dashboard. So there's two steps. We have to create a module and we have to create a training plan. So let's do the module first. What we're going to do is we're going to go to, on the menu bar on the left, click on Learning, then Modules, then Module List. Then we're going to click the green button that says New Module. And you'll see there's a bunch of options: course, live event, requirements tracker, skills checklist, and competency review. So for our purposes, we want a requirements tracker. And so we're brought to this page, and it's going to ask you for a code. You can make the code anything you want. So let's just, for this example, say CPR CLA 2021 or something like that. You have to put in a number of credit hours. If you're tracking something that doesn't have credit hours associated with it, you can just put in a 0. But we'll just pretend that we're tracking CPR, so I'm going to put in 4 hours. And then we enter a title, and let's say CLA First Aid / CPR. You can write a description here if you want. You don't need to worry about linking to courses, and leave the instructor blank. Okay? Now, one thing we want to do is, if we look on the right-hand side under Enrollment Settings, I would strongly recommend for most modules that you click the checkbox that says Allow Learners to Self-Enroll. That way, let's say you have a couple of staff and it's their time to do CPR. Well, you don't have to enroll them. You can send them an email and say, hey, your CPR is due. Please enroll in such and such class using Relias. And you can make it accessible via the mobile app if you want. For a requirements tracker, that's probably okay. Leave Approve for enrollment as yes. Then we're going to hit Save. Okay? And that is all that we have to do with the module. However, I just want to point out, if we click Module Associations up here, even though this is an external training, you can add modules to an external training tracker. So let's say that it's a first aid CPR. So recurring staff who've been here for a while, they probably don't need to review this stuff. They've already had the basics. But maybe you want to give brand new staff who've never gone through a first aid CPR class the option to learn some information about what they will be learning in the class before they actually take it. So if you want, you can click this Add Modules button, and I'm just going to go up here and I'm going to search for first aid. And you'll see, hey, look at this. There's a bunch of first aid courses. Maybe even this first aid refresher would be good for staff who, haven't had to use the first aid skills very often. So if I just check these, I'm just going to check all of them and hit Add. We will see, if we click the X here, now all of these modules are associated with this training tracker. So the staff don't have to complete these modules, but if they want to, they can. It's just additional information for them, okay? So that's all we need to do for the modules. We'll worry about enrollment later. Right now, this doesn't have any kind of ability to get a certificate or to get scheduled or anything like that. So for that, we need a training plan. So again, we're going to go to the menu bar on the left, and under Learning, we're going to hit Training Plans, and we're going to click on Training Plan List. Then we're going to click New Training Plan, okay? And we'll enter a title. And let's just say, First Aid CPR CLA. Okay? You can put a description if you want. And we'll hit Next. Now, you can make this recurring or non-recurring. So for something like CPR, that's recurring. That's every 2 years. So I'm going to hit Yes, Recurring, and you can have it fixed to a specific date. So that might be useful if, okay, let's say it's fire safety. And every year by October 15th, all of your staff have to complete a fire safety course. So you can click Fix to a specific date and go October 15th, okay? And you can calculate by calendar date, the user's hire date, or the user's birth date. So that might also be useful because maybe it's rolling based on the user's hire date. In this case, if we click calendar date, that's all you need to do. This is due every single year on October 15th. However, for something like first aid CPR, that's not due for everyone at the same time. So if we click dynamically based on the user's previous completion date, then all we have to do here is figure out, well, how many days after their previous completion date would it be due, right? And in this case, it would be 2 years, which would be 730 days. So we'll just type in 730. And you notice you can't actually see all 3 digits, but they are there if you scroll back and forth. And I would leave it as date the user is enrolled in the training plan because the staff aren't necessarily going to go through first aid CPR on their hire date. There might be some sort of extenuating circumstance where they're here for 6 months before they get into a first aid CPR class because of reasons X, Y, Z. So if you leave it as the date the user is enrolled in the training plan, then whatever date they actually completed, the clock starts over, and then 730 days from then is when it would be due again. And if we look here, how many days after the user is enrolled in the training plan should the modules be due? It defaults to 30. So that's probably, you can adjust that to whatever you want, but that's probably a good benchmark. That gives you a little bit of buffer, and then if for some reason the staff can't complete their first aid CPR 30 days before it's due, at least they're not out of compliance, okay? So we'll leave it like that, and then we'll hit the next button over here, which is a little bit hidden. Now we want to add a module, okay? So we already created the module, so we're going to hit plus on the modules, and you'll see right away, this is a list of like every single module. There's 836 modules and 84 pages. So we don't have to scroll through all of them. So there's a couple of things we can do. We can search the modules, and let's just search for first aid and hit the search button. And we see, okay, there's 7 different options here, which is which. So if we click the owner and we click St. Joseph Center Scranton, this only shows courses that have been created by St. Joseph Center managers. So that narrows it down even further. And if we take a look here, we can see CLA First Aid / CPR. That's the module we just created. So we're going to click that. And then we're going to click Add to List. And then we see right here, there's the first aid CPR, credit hours. You can adjust the due date, number of days due after initial date. I'll just leave it set as 0. Then we're going to hit the Save button. And we'll click Next. And then we get to enrollment conditions. So module availability. If you click Always Available, any user, any employee of St. Joseph Center who has a Relias account can enroll themselves into this module, or any manager can enroll a user into a module at any time. Acceptance window for previously completed modules, you can leave these alone. Remind learners or send warning emails, I would strongly recommend that you leave this as yes, because then when the user's due date comes up, Relias will send them an email, so you don't have to worry about tracking on a spreadsheet or an index card or something and manually emailing your employees, hey, your CPR is coming due. Relias will do that for you. And in another video, we'll go over reports, where you'll be able to run a report and see who is out of compliance or who will be out of compliance shortly. So one of the nice things about Relias is it kind of tracks all of this stuff for you, so you don't really have to worry about keeping your own systems in place. If you click 90 days prior to module due date, that means that the user won't see the module, and you or other managers won't be able to enroll users in the module until it's 90 days before the due date. So that might be useful because it just makes things a little bit simpler. Then if you're trying to figure out who needs to do CPR, you won't have, a big list of every single staff. You only have staff for whom this requirement is coming due. So I'm going to kind of leave everything as it is, ready for enrollment. You can leave it as a yes. If you have additional work to do on this training module, you need to add other modules that aren't ready or something like that, you can click no. And then we'll hit save. Okay? Now, we're done with this training plan. So how do we enroll users? So if we click on training plan list, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, under owners, I'm going to click again on St. Joseph Center Scranton. Right now there's not a whole lot of modules, but eventually there will be. So I'm just going to search for first aid. And again, we see first aid, CPR, CLA. So great. This is the first aid course that we created for CLA. So we want to assign users. So if we go to the right-hand side and see the assign, see this little person with a plus button? We're just going to click that. Now, learners enrolled. It defaults to currently enrolled. And so when you just create a training plan, there won't be anyone listed there. So we're going to go to the enrollment tab. And initially, it's going to come up with a list of every single St. Joe's employee. So we obviously don't want that. You're not going to want to have to search through every single St. Joe's employee and figure out. So if we scroll down here, if we click on the filters button toward the right-hand side, let's click departments. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this test department here. So if you wanted, CLA or CSS or ICF, you would just select the appropriate department. And then you will only see employees in that department. Now, let's say that I want to enroll every single user in my department in this training plan. Well, if we click this checkbox here, if you hover over it, it says select all. It selects every single user on the list. If you only want to enroll specific people, you can scroll down the list and only check the ones who you want to enroll, okay? There's only 2 people here now, but let's say I only wanted to enroll Jane. I leave her checked, I leave Mark unchecked. But in this case, I'm just going to check everyone. And then I'm going to hit the enroll button. And you're done. Those people are enrolled, and when they log into Relias, they will see that they have this requirements tracker. Now, under enrollment settings, I would leave this as, this is the same, we already adjusted these settings, but you can change them here. So we have it available as 90 days before the due date, but you can check available to learners immediately if you need to, if you have a new staff or something like that. Reporting start date, completion within 0 days prior to learner enrollment. So you can just leave that as the default. Okay, I'll leave it set as 0 days. So that's pretty much everything you need to do. You can do this for anything that needs to be tracked externally. A lot of this stuff will still be applicable for modules where there are trainings within Relias, like that you would still create a training plan the same way. But you'll be able to track external trainings using these systems. So hopefully this video was helpful, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and we would be happy to assist in any way possible. Thank you.